Hey everybody, you're watching We the Fandom, where we discuss comic books, pop culture, and the fandom experience. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more content. How's it going everybody? Jacob here at We the Fandom, and today I wanted to talk about the origin and history of the symbiotes in Marvel Comics in order to avoid having to go over all of it in my videos on Venom and Carnage, which I am currently in the process of making. The first instance of symbiote appearing in Marvel Comics would be in Secret Wars issue number 8. And Secret Wars, to give a quick summary, was an event where the entity known as the Beyonder gathered a group of heroes and group of villains, put them on a planet called Battleworld, and made them fight each other. After having his costume damaged during a fight, Spider-Man found a machine that could fix his costume, but what he thought was just the costume made of durable material that enhanced his natural abilities, he would later learn ended up being a living being after having it tested by Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Over the coming weeks, Spider-Man would start to realize that the suit didn't just give him extra abilities, it would also be feeding off of his physical energy as well as altering his mood, making him a bit more dark. This of course leads to him getting rid of the symbiote, it attaching itself to Eddie Brock, who becomes Venom, who spawns the Carnage symbiote, which bonds with Cletus Cassidy, and over the years we get a number of other symbiotes who find their own hosts. But over the years, the origin of the symbiote started to be retconned and expanded. That no longer was Venom just a lone alien being who spawned others, that the original symbiote was actually part of an entire race known as the Klyntar. The Klyntar are a species of inorganic, amorphous, symbiotic extraterrestrials created from the living abyss of Null the symbiote god, a primordial deity who created a sword out of living darkness called All Black, and used it to kill the Celestials as well as other deities. And he is easily one of the coolest new characters that Marvel has created in recent years, but even though he created the symbiotes, we're not going to spend a large amount of time talking about him in this video. Now, while the exact time of the creation of the symbiotes is unknown, Null stated that he started experimenting with his powers after becoming trapped on a desolate planet and learning that he could bond the living abyss with lesser creatures in order to transform them into monsters. After this initial experiment, Null started to amass an army and establish himself as the center of their hive mind, using them to conquer planets across the universe and devour entire civilizations over the course of billions of years. During the 6th century on Earth, Null sent 2 of his symbiote dragons to Earth, who would become known as Grendel and Grendel's mother from the tale of Beowulf. This event took place in Scandinavia, and instead of Beowulf showing up to fight the dragons, it was Thor. And when he struck down the dragons with his divine lightning, it was felt throughout the entire hive, severing the connection between Null and the symbiotes. With destabilization and the loss of their host Null, the symbiotes started seeking out hosts among various species throughout the universe. Bonding to these hosts ended up tainting the minds of the symbiotes with ideas like nobility and honor, causing the symbiotes to rebel against Null and imprison him in a massive symbiote so large that they actually looked like a planet, trapping Null for thousands of years and making it seem to the rest of the universe that the symbiotes had a homeworld of their own, with the name of their species Klyntar actually meaning cage. Meanwhile on Earth, the symbiotes still loyal to Null established a cult that worshipped him in the hopes of expediting his escape. This is something I mentioned in my video on the Ravencroft Institute, which you can see here. Now free, but ashamed of their origins, the symbiotes began to perpetuate the lie that they were actually a benevolent species endeavoring to spread peace. They would achieve this by once again creating a hive mind that could sense the voice of the cosmos and create an intergalactic peacekeeping society called the Agents of the Cosmos, as well as bonding to hosts that they deemed worthy to become noble warriors. This blending of Klyntar and host could be corrupted, however, if the host did not contain the correct mix of moral and physical ideals. Anytime this process went wrong, the hive would sever its connection to corrupted symbiotes and execute them. This would be the case for the Venom symbiote years later due to picking Eddie Brock as a host who simply wanted revenge on Spider-Man. The exiled, corrupted symbiotes would resume infecting and overtaking entire planets, spreading what the Klyntar claimed was misinformation about their benevolent counterparts. As a result, despite the Agents of the Cosmos' efforts, the species as a whole redeveloped the reputation of being predatory monsters that dominate their hosts mentally and physically, while parasitically feeding off their emotions and bodies. The corrupted symbiotes tended to force their hosts to perform amazing feats in order to feed off their adrenaline and other hormones, such as phenethylamine. Eventually, the hosts would be sucked dry of vital fluids, collapse from exhaustion due to the constant stress and exertion, or simply die in some stunt. And when that happens, the symbiote would seek out a new host to repeat the whole process. At some point in time, a group of feral symbiotes encountered the Silver Surfer and Galactus, intensifying their instinctual fear and hatred of the Surfer via their genetic memory. Now, even if separated from a host, some remnants of the symbiote's DNA, called the Codex, will remain in the host's body, as seen with the Venom symbiote leaving remnants of itself within the bodies of Peter Parker and Eddie Brock. The purpose of the Codex is to share information about the host with the rest of the Hive, though it can influence the host, enabling them to track the symbiote if separated from it. The remnants a symbiote leaves within its host can also be reactivated if exposed to additional symbiote biomass, or another stimulus like light force energy, though they can also reject the biomass altogether. Symbiotes can also absorb the codices of other symbiotes to become more powerful, temporarily acquiring their traits and whatever unique powers the Codex's host may have possessed. Now, the Venom symbiote is the 998th generation of its lineage, hatched on Klyntar as an egg and bred to be an agent of the cosmos. Unfortunately, the Venom symbiote ended up being bonded to a Kree warrior named Tel-Kar, who ended up becoming bitter and cruel after suffering years of torture at the hands of the Skrulls and betrayal by his fellow Kree. At some point, the Venom symbiote joined a group of corrupted Klyntar, but objected to their methods of using hosts. Sensing a deviation within their group, they placed the Venom symbiote in a canister where it eventually ended up on Battleworld to bond itself to Spider-Man. And of course, as I mentioned before, Spider-Man got rid of the symbiote and bonded to Eddie Brock to become Venom. The Venom symbiote spawned Carnage. Both Venom and Carnage would spawn symbiotes, and there would end up being a pretty large number of human hosts over the years, but we're not going to go over each one. Instead, we're going to talk about the most recent events regarding the symbiotes, as well as talking about Null again. So most recently in Marvel Comics, the symbiote race finally gained their freedom from Null after he invaded Earth. This event was called King in Black. It involved Null conquering Earth, controlling many of the heroes with the use of the symbiotes, all in a bid to kidnap the son of Eddie Brock, who had a special connection with the symbiotes. Despite how awesome the story is, I'm not really going to get into the details, but it ended with Eddie Brock gaining the Enigma Force, a power that comes from an alternate dimension, and killing Null by fusing Mjolnir and the Silver Surfer's surfboard together to form an axe. Following the defeat of Null, Eddie Brock became the new nexus of the symbiote hive mind, and that's basically where it currently stands with symbiotes in Marvel Comics. Now, in terms of their powers and abilities, there is a lot, so I'm just going to try to fly through this. Symbiotes can feed on their host's adrenaline, usually released into the bloodstream during the fight or flight response. They've also been shown to depend on their host for a steady supply of phenethylamine, a chemical found as a neurotransmitter in the human brain. When bonded to a superhuman host, a symbiote can interface with their genomes and physiology to imprint their unique powers and abilities into itself, granting subsequent hosts access to those powers. It can also bond to inorganic material, letting them interface with and augment machinery. Symbiotes have some ability to sense the thoughts and emotions of sentient creatures, though to what extent remains unclear. Symbiotes also have a genetic memory, allowing them to exploit their parents' knowledge through ancestral recall. Symbiotes are genderless, usually reproducing asexually, though some symbiotes are hatched from eggs, and they do so to bolster their numbers in response to dire threats to the safety of their species. Symbiotes are immune to most conventional weapons. They are dense enough to absorb the force of powerful blows and stop bullets before they reach the host being. They're also able to process breathable gases for the host when it would otherwise be unable, to include being underwater. They also seem to confer a weak healing factor on strongly bonded hosts. Other facilities of a Klyntar enable them to siphon godhood away, rendering the affected almighty being mortal or close to it in the process. Another trait of the swirling black masses is the ability to retain a wearer's anima, the very characteristics of a previous host within their genetic codex. During such a process, the Klyntar and their prior hosts essentially become one being, taking on their very soul well after the former, whom they previously bonded to, had long since died. Symbiotes seem to have some latent psychic abilities, allowing them to respond to the thoughts of their hosts and each other. The symbiote amplifies the strength of its wearer, so that a reasonably fit human such as Eddie Brock can compete and even exceed Spider-Man's strength. It also confers improved speed and agility on the host. By virtue of having partially bonded with Spider-Man, Venom and its descendants all have spider-like powers, including the ability to cling to surfaces and produce organic webbing. Most can also avoid detection by Spider-Man's spider sense. Symbiotes can control the actions of their host to a certain point, with stronger Klyntar having greater influence. Symbiotes that have fully bonded with their hosts have a more biologically complex symbiosis with their hosts and can share thoughts and memories with them. Carnage has also been known to hide in its host bloodstream. Most symbiotes have the power to form solid appendages from their bodies and have been shown to form spikes, talons, and blades. So yeah, that's the origins, history, and abilities of the symbiotes. If you guys have any questions about anything regarding the symbiotes, feel free to post those in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. I'll see you all next time. Bye.